Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to RPG Horror Stories. I've been having a lot of fun playing Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and I woke up after only like 5 hours of sleep, and immediately started grinding out some of the side quests off stream. I just can't put the game down, but I ended up managing to put it down so I can get this filmed. So, we're starting off with a strong post. My first D&D campaign ever. At that guy. This was from a good while ago, so details will be hazy. But when I first decided I wanted to try my hand at being a DM, complete with creating an entire world, fresh story, and having the smart idea to do it almost entirely improvised, I had my best friend, another player that came from another Dungeons & Dragons game I participated in. Let's call him Cool Dude. But I felt like I could use more than just two. More the merrier, I say. Get a few players and start on my way. The first few sessions go fine as I get my bearings, and unfortunately, it seemed my style of play wasn't for one of the players that I had recruited, and the cool dude had to go due to having a baby and not having enough time to play. The other player, let's just call him Monk. He says that he got a couple of friends he could bring in, so I give the okay, and that's how I get introduced to the rogue, and that guy. Please note, the rest of this will almost entirely be about that guy. Now, being a new DM and laid back in general, I have very little qualms about stuff like homebrew classes. This game was intending on being fun. However, he was hell-bent on picking some very, very clearly broken homebrew. I tried to compromise saying that he could play that homebrew class, but we're going to grow you into it instead of starting off as it, which caused him to backpedal and pick an Unearthed Arcana class. At the time, this was Artificer. However, this was only the beginning. Over the 2-year-long campaign, he would argue mechanics such as Artificer having mechanical means of casting spells, therefore wouldn't require concentration checks to maintain certain concentration spells, which I compromised, saying that the devices then could be targeted by enemy attacks, if they notice, or hit by area of effect, potentially stopping the spell-like effect, which was the only thing he was fine with. Okay, OP, I absolutely congratulate you. You've basically, right from the get-go, shut down on a lot of the rules layering and the homebrewing shit that guy people like to do. And, he was trying to rules lawyer, like, oh man, I don't make concentration check, it's the machines that I make that are casting the spells. So, you just said, you know what, fine. Your machines are the ones making the concentration check. All it does is flavor things. Because ultimately, it's still the Artificer making the concentration check. The machine's still gonna have to make the concentration check. Most of them are gonna be on the Artificer, so it changed nothing. He would constantly argue over rulings, be it mine or rules as written. Would complain if a character got a plot-relevant upgrade. I use plot in the loosest term, admittedly. A new item that his character couldn't use. A new item his character could use, but wasn't as good as he wanted it to be. A joke item that was based on an earlier puzzle that the group laughed about. That wasn't good enough for him. I did talk with him about these things, and he said he would work on it. I was not mad about his shenanigans, but I was confused and concerned about losing a player, because they weren't having fun, and the rest of the group didn't speak up, so I assumed everything was at the least stable. Nearing the end of the campaign, as it were, things were moving at a brisk pace as far as the big bad was concerned. I was finally figuring out that yes, I should be taking notes and making at least a basic rough draft of what I want to do, and he then decides that he doesn't like his character and wants to start fresh. Okay, OP, listen, I really applaud you. You have been seeing red flag after red flag about this character being that guy, and, this is your first time being a Dungeon Master. You don't really have many tools in your arsenal personally to really defend against him. You weren't even really taking notes. He could have literally rewrote his entire character sheet, and you might not have noticed. Well, you probably would have, but still, he might have tried doing that, and there's a chance that you might not have noticed until partway through a session. And quite frankly, I'm surprised that you've been able to handle that guy situation for your first campaign so well. You are doing so good. I distinctly remember being exceptionally concerned at this point. When asked why, it was because I can't do enough. So after confirming that he wanted to do this, we get situated on what he wanted to play, which was a bounty hunter homebrew class, and I accelerated a story beat that was tailored for what he wanted his artificer character to do, which also wasn't to his liking. Should I have allowed this? Probably not, but I was reaching the end of my patience by this point with this player and just wanted to keep him placated while interfering with the other players. After a few more months, the campaign ends, and after I start talking with the other players, that guy didn't want to participate. Felt my first time DMing, asking for critiques on how it went, what I could change or improve and work on. One thing that came up was to not allow that guy to join the next campaign. When I asked why no one told me he was a nuisance before, apparently it was because I was not really showing any signs of frustration towards him. They were still having fun, but were annoyed that he kept questioning my decisions with no basis. That guy left the server not long after. I still thanked him in Discord DMs for participating, however. All said and done though, I still run with these guys to this very day. Currently a year plus into my second campaign with a couple of new players. In addition, luckily for me, know that guy to deal with this time around. I know that this is very, very much a horror story, but listen, DM, OP, dude, you kick ass here. You shut down that guy at every turn, so he wasn't much of a nuisance to you, and it was your first time DMing. You didn't have much of a way to deal with him in the first place. He basically just couldn't do much to interrupt the session aside from questioning you, and he ended up leaving for the campaign after because he was that guy, and he realized that he didn't belong at the table. Much love, stay sexy. And I hope that your current game is going very well. Keeping with the that guy theme, we also have Confessions from a reformed that guy. This was a very long time ago. I was a kid in middle school, and I was very, very immature. I've never talked about this because of the shame I felt hearing parallels in the other horror stories, but I thought I would share it because I thought it might be better to put it out there than to step in the shame. Back in 2015, I was invited by some friends to play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I was interested, and I went to their house where I met the rest of the group and rolled up a character, an elven paladin, and we had this shitpost of an introductory one-shot. It went without incident. My table manners weren't the best, but they didn't interfere with the session at all. Until we started having more sessions, that is. Around the time that we started playing an actual campaign, Undertale had come out and I was all over it. I had finished 2 playthroughs and was on my 3rd. What makes this relevant to the story is that when we had sessions, I would bring my laptop to the Dungeon Master's house and play Undertale at the table with the volume up during the session. And because I didn't understand D&D better, I assumed that because I wasn't actively participating in the game like everyone else, that I got left behind by the party and had to catch up for some reason. That wasn't a ruling the DM made. It's something I imposed upon myself because I had a very video gamey perception of how D&D is played at the time. And this weird misunderstanding caused me to get pretty upset at the table, and want to play even less than I already was. During one session, we met at another player's house, because the Dungeon Master's parents were having a hard time keeping up with 7 to 8 kids in their house on a week-to-week basis, which is understandable. I got on a video call with my then-girlfriend at the time during the session and literally got up from the table to go talk to her. And then she and I just started actively disrupting the sessions, yelling things like, "Cast magic missile on the darkness!" even if there was nobody with either spell, nor was there any magical darkness present. Again, I think this was because I was approaching D&D like a video game, and I'm autistic, which definitely didn't help me see the social ramifications of my behavior. I eventually fell out of the group after an incident while we were all playing Smash 4. I used an amiibo instead of fighting myself, and it caused seconds of input lag, and everyone was super mad at me for it. I still talked to the Dungeon Master and his brother, as they were friends who invited me, and were generally chill with me and my antics. But now, 7 years later, we have drifted apart. If either of them see this, I want them to know that I'm sorry. I would love to get back in touch and play again one day. Especially now that I've had plenty of time to grow, as a person and as a player. Listen, OP, don't be beating yourself up over this. Listen, I am autistic, I have Asperger's, I have these very same issues at times, with social ramifications and everything. I mean, my first time ever playing D&D, luckily it was on a one-shot, so I knew what I did wrong afterwards. My first time playing D&D, I was that guy. It's not that hard to come back from it, and unfortunately, a lot of the times when people like you and me play Dungeons & Dragons for the first time, we end up having that video gaming perception of it because it's a role-playing game, and the only role-playing games we know of are video games. So we play it closer to closer to a JRPG than to a tabletop game, when they're ultimately completely separate mediums and completely different forms of fun. And we don't always catch that, or manage to put that sort of 2 and 2 comparison together. So don't beat yourself up over it. You're fine. What's really bad here is that your friends should have told you, like, hey, this is bad behavior. You probably shouldn't do this. This is not fun for us. That sort of thing. I'm literally 23 I'm 22 going on 23 years old. I still have to get corrected by my friends for some of my social outbursts because I don't know whether it's right or wrong. They literally have to fucking tell me. If your friends don't have that flexibility to literally just up and fucking tell you to your face, hey, this isn't cool. Are they really your friends? That's what this comes down to. The horror story isn't that you were that guy. The horror story is that they didn't work with you. They didn't even take the effort to help you work through this and fix your own behavior. That's the horror story here. Now, I did have another story for today, but honestly, after reading that story, I'm gonna cut this video short because I don't want to water down my message here. If you have an autistic player, if you have somebody in your friend group who is autistic, and they are sometimes that guy, it's not usually intentional. We don't catch our own social impulses. We don't normally know what's right or wrong in a social situation. We can mask things for a little while, but it's never gonna work all the way. Even look, I am an adult, I'm full fucking grown adult, and I still need people to tell me, yo, dude, that behavior is not cash money. Or, yo, dude, maybe you shouldn't fucking do that. Because I even have my own way of thinking for things like this, where I actually think things through, like, out loud, talk to myself. And I sound like I'm fucking crazy half the time, but it's the only thing that works for me when I don't have friends around me. And even then, that still doesn't work. You have to, like, if you have a friend who is autistic in your friend group, you have to have that willingness to tell them, yo, this ain't cool. Yo, this ain't right. Yo, this ain't cash money. You've gotta fucking tell them somehow, some way. You gotta be kind about it, but you've gotta be blunt too. You've gotta be not brutally honest, but you've gotta be blunt with them, and you've gotta be nice about it. You've gotta show them, like, hey, this is what normal fucking people would do. Here's a decent way that you can mask it by doing something like this. And usually, we will follow that formula. So, much love. Stay sexy, and I hope to see you guys later. And if you made it all the way to here, to the end of the video, you've got big dick energy. Bye-bye!